What is the minute paper and how is it effective in the classroom? You might ask yourself, how can 1 minute of time be enough to facilitate an effective classroom assessment technique? However, if you stop and think about it, in 1 minute you can floss your teeth, you can wash your hands, or you could send an email. So perhaps 1 minute is plenty of time for an effective classroom assessment technique. At the end of a lesson, the instructor can ask their students what question remains unanswered or what was the most stimulating idea that we discussed in class today. These simple questions can prompt interest, conceptual connections, and enable the instructor to hear from all the students. Let's discuss the strategy of the 1 minute paper and how it works. This classroom assessment technique is a quick and simple method for instructors to collect valuable feedback about the students' learning. It allows the students the opportunity to reflect on the day's lesson. It could be something about the lesson that they didn't understand or something that was relevant about the lesson. From this feedback, the instructors assess the students' learning and can make changes to the lesson to facilitate further learning. At the beginning or end of the class, the instructor will write 1 or 2 questions on the board. The students will be provided a piece of paper or an index card, and they'll be given a minute to answer one of the questions. This exercise requires the students to evaluate what they recall, and therefore it kickstarts their learning. The instructor then uses this feedback to determine the students' learning and understanding. The minute paper is a great way for instructors to hear from all of their students. So when can the minute paper be used? This technique works well in both large and small class sizes and is especially effective in lecture or discussion courses. It is also useful in labs, field trips, and study groups. Instructors can choose to do this at either the beginning or the end of a class, and it's extremely useful in courses where students are learning a lot of information. There are several advantages to the minute paper. This technique is very simple to implement. Useful feedback is gathered in a minimal amount of time, and the instructor gets feedback from all the students. The instructors are able to tally and analyze responses to determine any gaps in learning to further enhance learning. This technique also shows the students that the instructor is interested in their learning, therefore encouraging student engagement. Once any gaps in learning are determined, the instructor can make changes to the lesson plan. Every good technique is not without its limitations. If the minute paper is overused, the students may start to think of it as an exercise in polling. Another thing to keep in mind is that it is more difficult than it seems to prepare questions for students that they can clearly understand and answer within approximately 1 minute. Here are some best practices of the minute paper. The students need to see the questions, so it's important to present the question on a chalkboard or overhead TV or projector. It is always a good idea to let the students know exactly how much time they have to write down their response or question. Once the feedback is collected, it is important to set aside time during the next class to provide immediate feedback. As well, once the responses are tallied, the instructor should respond to the most commonly raised questions. Providing feedback. Instructors can integrate feedback into teaching activities. This feedback helps engage students prior to starting their learning. It shows the respect of the instructor for student learning, and it encourages active listening and engagement. I hope you have enjoyed my video on the classroom assessment technique, the minute paper. Thanks for listening.